So you know how in this update there have been changes to 4 towers in Tower Defense Simulator, a medic rework, a turret rework, a archer rebalance, and a assassin rebalance? Well, you're wrong, because there is another tower that the developers have for some reason messed around with, and it is the tower that everyone says is probably the worst tower in Tower Defense Simulator. It's the Snowballer Tower. Yes, the Snowballer Tower, which hasn't been mentioned in the update log for a while, even with its previous changes in July when there was a damage buff applied to it. Now, I can only speculate that the developers probably didn't highlight the Snowballer changes, either because they didn't know, they forgot to mention it, or a tester was messing around with the Snowballer, messing around with its statistics, and for some reason it ended up in a testing place that the developers probably used for like forwarding the game towards the main production, and they didn't realize that the Snowballer had changed. My money is on the latter option, the third option that I've stated, but truly, who knows? But the Snowballer has been, I say buffed, I think it has definitely been buffed in this update. So, what has changed about the Snowballer? Well, at level 0, the Snowballer has lead detection. Yes, previously the Snowballer did also have lead detection at a level 3, but this has been moved down to level 0. So at the very start, the Snowballer can detect lead enemies. I mean, the only problem is, not many enemies in Tower Defense Simulator actually do have lead. Like, as far as I'm aware, you've got the lead boss, and the lead balloon. And, wait. The Snowballer has lead detection, but the Snowballer can't damage the lead. But okay, is that just a glitch that I see, or have the developers fucked this thing up? Right, okay, so if I were to get the lead enemy again, would it be able to damage it? Or the lead boss, right? Okay, so it doesn't seem like it. Okay, so if I upgrade this to max, defeat this lead here. Okay, and then these enemies, the Snowballer isn't able to deal damage to the lead, but it has lead detect. The developers have broken the Snowballer. Right, okay, that's why have the developers done this. Okay, that's really odd. I don't know why that's the case. Anyways, the fire rates for the Snowballer has also decreased from 3 to 2.5, so its DPS would have increased, and the range for the Snowballer has increased from 9.5 to 11, so it's generally usable. However, the Snowballer has become quite a bit buggy, so you'll notice that the Snowballer, even though it's throwing the snowballs at enemies, you'll notice it has 10 damage, 8 damage, 5 damage. Yeah, the Snowballer itself has clearly done more damage than this, but for some reason the damage counters aren't increasing. Additionally, cash isn't being given. Yes, you saw it one shot from the Snowballer being registered correctly, but for some reason that's like an exception. For some reason, the Snowballer's damage from level 0 and level 2, between level 0 and level 2, it seems to be really buggy, whereas sometimes you don't even get the cash that seems to be stated from even damaging enemies. This is a legacy golden mode, by the way, so you should be getting cash when you damage enemies. It's not the case here. Additionally, you aren't getting any cash when an enemy dies, for example, in a different game mode. So, for example, in Fallen mode, when an enemy dies, such as the Abnormal, for example, it's meant to give out cash. However, with the Snowballer, apparently it has an ability, a secret ability, where it just disables enemies giving out cash. So, you know, if you want to piss off everyone, just use a Snowballer, because all of a sudden it's more OP than before, and it just allows, it means it just tanked your economy. The Snowballer here, right? It has a better economic value to, say, I don't know, Zimbabwe than the president of Zimbabwe does. Like, the Snowball is able to crash your economy just because, well, cash isn't even being given out correctly. Like, occasionally cash is given out correctly, but other times it just doesn't. How does that make any sense? But anyways, the DPS for the Snowballer has increased from 1.33 to 1.59, and the cost efficiency therefore has decreased from 225.56 to 188.68, which is actually fairly reasonable for a tower, except for the fact that obviously it tanks your economy and it doesn't have the correct stated lead detection. Right, okay. Meanwhile, as for level 1, the fire rate here has decreased from 2.5 to 2, and the range has also slightly increased from 11 to 13. And to be fair, going from 11 to 13, that's actually quite a significant buff, especially because, you know, this is 100 cost for the upgrade. When I stated previously that the Snowballer is unable to damage enemies, that's not necessarily true. It's that the damage isn't being registered by the damage counter, as seen here. The damage counter isn't increasing by any amount. But additionally, when you see, there is no damage counter that appears. Sometimes a damage counter does appear, and that's an exception. But most of the times, there is no damage counter when you're using the Snowballer, which means it is quite bugged, and therefore that's for some reason affects the economy of the enemy. Anyways, regardless of that, because the Snowballer is able to still deal damage, it does have a DPS value. It previously had a DPS value of 1.99, it now has a DPS value of 2.49, and the cost efficiency has gone from 201 to 160.64. This is the best cost efficiency for any Snowballer level, so, you know, maybe spam some level 1 Snowballers for maximum cost efficiency. And from this alone, it looks pretty good, you know, 160 cost efficiency, that's not too bad, and it slows down enemies. However, with that being said, its utility outside of the early game is second to probably none, basically. No other tower in Tower Defense Simulator probably has less utility outside of the early game than the Snowballer does. I mean, yes, it's able to freeze enemies eventually, but, I mean, so can the freezer, and I think more people would use the freezer than the Snowballer. Meanwhile, as for level 2, the only change that's happened here is that the range has increased from 14 to 15. I mean, there's also the fire rate change that was made at level 1, which means that at level 2, the Snowballer has a fire rate of 2, meaning that the DPS for the level 2 Snowballer has actually slightly increased as well, from 3.98 to 4.98. Therefore, meaning that the cost efficiency has gone from 213.57 to 170.68. Now, despite all of these changes, the Snowballer lacks in one regard, at all levels, even at level 3. It still cannot see hidden enemies. The most important detection that the Snowballer could have, it's missing. It can't really damage lead, and you'll see here later on that there's a very important ability that the Snowballer gets at level 3, but it still cannot see hiddens. That is atrocious, I can't lie. So, what is this ability that the Snowballer gets at level 5? Well, interestingly enough, it can see flying enemies. Yes, the Snowballer has, well, it's meant to have lead detection at level 0 to 2, but the lead detection does fix itself at level 3. But the Snowballer at level 3 can now see balloons and flying at them enemies, obviously, not just the balloon. But yes, this actually does work. As you can see, the Snowballer was able to target the balloon up there, and it was actually able to damage hidden enemies as well. Now, obviously, this is part of the Snowballer's splash damage that it gets at level 3. It's not necessarily the fact that the Snowballer can detect the hidden enemies on its own, but it's able to damage them if there is another enemy nearby that it can detect. It includes the flying enemies now. So, yes, for some reason, the Snowballer has both lead detection and flying detection, but not hidden detection, which is similar to the Electroshocker. The Electroshocker can also only see or detect lead enemies, damaged lead enemies, and flying enemies, but it can't detect hidden enemies unless there is a nearby ace pilot or you use a UAV, for example. Now, I can't lie, I think the Snowballer, just for the memes, right, it should be able to get hidden detection at level 3, right, as like one of the only towers in the game to detect all 3 detections, because let's be real, the Snowballer in of itself is not that good at all anyways, even if you give it hidden detection. Yes, it's able to detect all 3 detections, hidden, lead, and flying. But what use is it going to have? The only use I can really think of it having is that early on, during hardcore mode, the Snowball actually becomes quite a useful tower. Because, well, you're able to detect the invisible enemies that spawn in, but you're also able to detect the lead enemies that spawn in, and you're also able to detect the flying enemies that spawn in. However, that being said, level 3 is slightly expensive. It's 2,700, and is one Snowballer alone able to kill off all of those enemies in hardcore mode? Actually, thinking about it, maybe, because those enemies are actually, relatively speaking, quite weak, because the game expects you to have multiple towers to deal with each and every detection. It's not expected that one tower, you place that one tower and bam, all of those detections, hidden, lead, and flying, are automatically solved. With the Snowballer, I would love to see the Snowballer get hidden detection just to like break that meta, and all of a sudden the Snowballer has one very, very niche product, that being in hardcore mode. But unfortunately, yeah, the Snowballer is stuck not seeing hidden enemies. With that being said, though, the Snowballer has received another buff at level 3, the last level for the Snowballer, that being its fire rate has decreased from 2 to 1.75, which means that the DPS for the Snowballer has increased slightly from 12.45 to 14.22, meaning that the cost efficiency for the Snowballer has gone from 216.86 to 189.87, which, relatively speaking, is an okay cost efficiency. It's not terrible, and it's not good by any means. It's not like, hang on a minute, it can't damage golden enemies. Bruh, okay, it is technically an explosion, yes, but, like, hold on, the level 0... Hold on, so the Snowball, is the Snowballer at any level able to damage the explosive end? What's going on? Okay, hold on. Damn, okay, so, newsflash, upgrading to level 3 actually nerfs the Snowballer in terms of golden mode. I mean, obviously, golden mode doesn't exist outside of this experiment here, but obviously, the projectile at level 3 is an explosive projectile, so it's not able to damage enemies with no explosion. But the Snowballer, between level 0 and level 2, its projectile is not considered explosive based. I mean, obviously it's not. It can only hit, like, one enemy. So, that's able to damage golden enemies. Now, the only problem is, no explosive. That's not really an immunity that's seen elsewhere. So, doesn't really count, I must say. But it's really odd to see that the Snowballer kind of nerfed itself in terms of this from levels 2 to level 3. It doesn't even slow them down. Look at this. It looks like it does, though. Does it? Or is there... No, there's a level 0. Ah, right. So the level 0 Snowballer is able to slow down the golden enemies, but the level 3 Snowballer isn't. Again, that's really weird. Anyways, as I was saying previously, yes, the cost efficiency for the Snowballer, it's decent enough. I mean, its range also at this level, it's quite massive. It was buffed from 18 to 19 at this level, so not a major buff, but it's still noticeably different. And maybe the Snowballer has become slightly more usable with these changes. However, will that change the perception of people for this tower being the worst tower in Tower Defense Simulator? Probably not. I still think many people would see the Snowballer as the worst tower in Tower Defense Simulator. But I'm just saying, maybe give the Snowballer a chance. It could be somewhat useful in hardcore mode because you got lead detection and you have flying detection at max level. Although it is slightly expensive, 2,700 to max out. I mean, I don't know what the requisite is for other towers in hardcore mode for both flying and lead detection, especially because the Snowballer cannot see hidden section as well, so you need another tower for that. But, you know, maybe it has a use in Tower Defense Simulator, a very niche use.